Hello, parents. It's me again. I'm back. Just wanted to give you a rundown of the things that we did this week in 7th grade math. So I'm going to step away from my computer for just a minute so I can kind of go through these as we do. This week in 7th grade math, we worked on one-step equations with adding and subtracting in section 4 and then multiplying and dividing in section 2. The key thing is the kids had to understand that they had to work inverse operations, and that means opposite, to get rid of the number that's with the variable or the letter. So here we're going to work balanced equations, and we want to work to get m all by itself. So right now I have m plus 14, and we're going to work and do the opposite. So we're going to subtract 14 here. The kids have to remember that whenever they work the opposite on one side, they have to balance the equation. They have to do that same concept on the other side. So they're going to say minus 14. Okay, we are now to the point where we're starting to solve for letters, and my classroom rule is once there's a letter in the equation, they may go ahead and use a calculator. We're working more complex steps, so I don't want the combination of integers to be what slows the student down from being successful, so that's kind of why I do that. I will continue to work with the kids on integers. I know that that's very important for the high school teachers. They really want the kids comfortable with integers, so I will continue to assess and reassess all year long on integers, decimals, and fractions. So right now, if they would like to use a calculator, they may from here, pretty much here on out, unless I tell them they can't. Here I end up with m on one side. I'm going to go ahead and do this longhand. So I have the same symbol. I'm going to find the sum, which is 38. And then I'm going to apply the same symbol. So here I just found out that m equals negative 38. In the next one, I have a subtraction, z minus 10. So I want to work to get z by itself, which means I have to get rid of that minus 10 by adding 10. That zeroes out. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other to balance it out. I end up with z equals 27. Now, if one of your students wants to check themselves, they could substitute in their answer where z is. So 27 minus 10 does give me 17, so I know I'm correct on that one. Okay, so that was section 4. We also worked in section 4 with fractions and decimals. So that's kind of why it took us a little bit longer, because we had to review those skills of adding, subtracting, and so forth. In section 5, we worked with multiplying and dividing. So here I've got negative 11 times m. Now some of the kids wanted to do the opposite to the number, and they wanted to throw in a plus 11, but they have to remember that they're actually doing the opposite operation or the inverse operation. So right now it's negative 11. We would go ahead times m, we would divide by negative 11. Negative 11 divided by negative 11 would give me m. 1m is the same as just an m. So then I would go ahead and divide by negative 11. So this would be a situation where I would say to a student, if you'd like to use your calculator, go ahead and use it. So I get m equals 143 divided by 11 is 13. I have one negative sign, so it's actually negative 13. Okay, for division, we've got m divided by 4 equals 22. So right now, because it's dividing by 4, I'm going to go times 4. And I know some of you might say, well, 4 times 4 is 16. Really, we're taking it times 4 over 1, or we're doing the reciprocal. So it ends up canceling out right here. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to go times 4. And I'm not going to write it out as 4 over 1 because I'm working with a whole number. So then I find out that m equals 22 times 4 is 88. Okay, so that's working one-step equations. And it's very important that they get a good, strong understanding of this, because when we jump into two-step equations next week, they have to be comfortable with inverse or opposite operations. Next week, we're going to be working with commutative properties, associative properties, and distributive properties, as well as like terms. So commutative property is kind of like community. So like if you lived in a community, you could move from place to place and still keep the same population. So this is an example of commutative property. It's where I can rearrange the numbers in the order and chunk what I call chunk groups, chunk numbers together to make it easier to do. Associative is kind of like when I tell the kids, you move from one spot to another and you associate with other people. That's kind of what the parentheses are. But we're still going to end up with the same answer. So here I could maybe associate 5 and 10 and get 15. Plus 2 would still give me 17. Well, here, if I did 2 plus 5 first and got 7 plus 10, it's still going to give me 17. Associative and commutative properties can only be used with multiplication and addition because you can do those in any order. Distributive properties is where you distribute a number to anything on the inside. So here it's really 5 times what's happening inside of here. So I distribute that 5 to the 2 by doing 5 times 2 and then distribute to the 5 by multiplying also. Combining like terms is when we would go ahead and add numbers that have the same ending. So like if I had 10x plus 3x, I could add those together and get 13x, but I could not add like a 10x plus 5 because they don't have the same ending. Other things we're going to work with next week are those two-step equations. So once again, why I told you it was very important that the kids get very good at the one step because we're going to add to that. Next week, things that I wanted to make sure that you understood. Next Friday is picture retakes on the 23rd. So if your son or daughter needs to do picture retakes, that's next Friday. We also are going to have the kids next Wednesday starting to get ready in my classroom, at least for goal setting for their conferences so that they're getting ready for that student-led conference that'll be the following week. So you should be getting conference letters also. And then I'm going to do STAR assessment next Friday so that they're able to not have homework next Friday. Plus it'll give us that third reading. So those will show up on their JMC, so on their grade report, probably over the weekend, next weekend. That's pretty much all I have for this week. Hopefully you have a great weekend. Thanks.